morning. When Joe Stieven was imagining this, we were thinking about what to call it. And he was very adamant about calling it Alumni Conversations rather than a speaker series. So with that intent, we look for a lot of question and answers and feedback. So I have a first question for you. How many of you have been in this room before? How many have not been in this room? Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? What a beautiful room. I feel like Shakespeare might walk out, right? Harry Styles, something like that. So I'm Dan Lauer, and I'm an entrepreneur first. I've lived the entrepreneur American dream, and I'm an alum, first and foremost. And so I have another question for you. Has anyone in the room ever thought of, or is doing a side hustle, wants to do a side hustle, ever thought about developing an idea or a product, or wants to do a startup, or thinks of themselves as an entrepreneur? Raise your hand. So you're in a good spot. Our intention at UMSL is to be a first choice for entrepreneur-minded students. So here's my pitch, because we're going to have people pitch today. We differentiate at UMSL with our entrepreneurship. We have a degree program, so for those who raise their hand, want to be an entrepreneur, consider a double major, very practical degree, and strong pedagogy. Even if you never run a business, you'll be stronger in your job. Next week, we have a pitch competition. We're doing an idea bounce with Wash U. Michael, if you could stand up. Michael's the president of our student club. Yeah. See him. Today's about networking. So if you want to pitch for $150, $150 for just a 2-minute pitch, see him. In January, you can get paid to learn. So for $18.75 an hour, we're going to have 12 students work with our best and brightest underrepresented founders who are right now going through a judging process. The application just closed Saturday. We had over 200 applications again. So there's a great opportunity for you to get paid to learn. Another person I want to introduce is Michael Elliott. Dean, if you could stand up. Thank you, Dean. Please see him about our curriculum. So anyway, run of show. So Joe's going to talk about ethics, about leadership for a bit. And then we'll have a Q&A. We're not yet Duke basketball or Alabama football, but we have all-star alums that are here to support you today. So I'm going to have some of our best, most distinguished alums and leaders in the world and in the community do their pitch. And then we're going to break and we're going to go have lunch. And that's an opportunity for you to network. Because a couple things we know. Coming out of COVID, if we have a class that's online and a class that's in person, online fills up faster, which is great. We have a great online program, but we miss this connection. And some skills are being lost about old-fashioned shaking your hand and meeting people. So take advantage of that today. Because what we hope to have happen is as you leave, there's a nugget, there's a memory, there's a relationship that starts because of this that might transform your life, that begins to transform your life. So our chancellor's here, and I've come to find out she spends most every day, every waking hour, thinking about transforming your life. Processes, opportunities. So it's very fitting today that we welcome Chancellor Kristen Sobolik.
Wow, so welcome everybody. Welcome to the Lee Theater and our fantastic Two Hill Performing Arts venue. We're so excited to have each and every one of you here today. And I have been so looking forward to this particular day and what it all represents, which is an incredible opportunity for each of you, our students and our other representatives here, to enter into a conversation with some of our most successful alumni. And we know that the future most successful alumni are sitting right here in the audience today. Now, the expectation of success for each and every one of you, of our students, is something that we believe in every moment, without exception. It is the reason we, the University of Missouri St. Louis administration, the faculty, and the students and staff are here. And it is why these distinguished alums are here with us today. They're about your success and your opportunities. So later in today's program, you will have an opportunity for one-on-one engagement with an amazing cohort of leaders sitting here in the front. This is an opportunity that's made possible by the generosity of the program sponsors, Mary and Joe Stieven. So to them, Mary and Joe, thank you. Joe and I personally invited each member of the cohort to participate, and we wish to acknowledge today that we are feeling the absence of one member, George Paz. George passed away suddenly last week, and he was the former chairman and CEO of Express Scripts and past president of the Chancellor's Council. He was a staunch advocate for the University of Missouri St. Louis, and he credited UMSL with laying the foundation for his career success. And in fact, George stated on many occasions that UMSL was the best decision he had ever made in his life. George was a recipient of the UMSL's Distinguished Alumni Award, as is every single member of the program cohort, which includes today Warner Baxter, who is the executive chairman of Ameren, Orv Kimbrough, who's the chairman and CEO of Midwest Bank Center, Marcela Manjarez, who is the former executive vice president and chief communications officer of Centene, and Sandra Van Trees, who's a former group president of BJC Healthcare. And of course, today's speaker, Joe Stieven. Joe has more than 30 years' experience in the financial industry and is the president, chairman, and CEO of Stieven Capital Advisors, LP. After graduating from UMSL's College of Business Administration with a BSBA in finance in 1982, Mr. Stieven began his career as an analyst and an examiner for the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. In 1985, he became senior vice president and director of the Financial Institutions Research Group at Stifel, Nicholas & Company, and graduated then with an MBA in UMSL's College of Business Administration. Joe Stieven has worked on over 100 bank and thrift transactions over the past decade. He has managed 9 financial institution equity trusts, raising over $200 million and gaining national recognition. So please welcome to the stage, Joe Stieven.
Good morning. A couple things. In honor of Halloween last night, I do have to tell one good, clean Halloween joke, so we'll kick it off. What does an alligator drink for breakfast? Gatorade. There you go. All right. So that was the other joke. I was told you can't tell that one, Joe. So let me go ahead and get started. There's not going to be a test on anything here. And I want you to be able to walk away with something that really has value. And I hope we can achieve that. So let me get started. My wife, Mary, and I, and my wife is not with me today, but for those who know Mary, she is absolutely my better half, maybe my better 3/4. But Mary and I were inspired to start this conversation on ethics for many reasons, culminating with the wonderful lessons that I learned from my mentor, the late, great Elliot Stein. Most of you won't know Elliot, but let me give you a little of his background. He was voted as the most influential business person in St. Louis for the last half century, from 1950 to 2000. Think about that. 50 years, he was the most influential. At his peak, he was on 13 boards of directors, including General Dynamics, Ralston Purina, Burlington Northern, just to name a few. He also was the confidant of many of the wealthiest families in the area and to many of the CEOs, Bush, Knights, Sterritz. Elliot took me under his wing for nearly 10 years. We became very close. He really enjoyed when my wife, Mary, when my wife and kids used to come down to the office, Elliot loved it, and he really took a liking to Mary. And I can tell you, this tells you a lot about Elliot. I remember one time a big New York investment banking firm was trying to hire me away from Stieven. Elliot really wouldn't tell me what to do, but he sent flowers to Mary. And it's amazing how intelligent Elliot was. I never left, and we've stayed in St. Louis the entire time. Elliot's ethics and his character were unquestioned. In fact, there is a speaker series on ethics named after him, which was the genesis for this. We thought it would be a great way to help you, our young students, to understand the importance of ethics. And when I say young, I'm not speaking down to you. I'm actually saying it out of admiration. I wish I was so young again. But it is so important on what we call the successful road to life. And this simple idea brought to Chancellor Sobolik, then with input from Dan Lauer, who you met already, our founding executive director of the UMSL Accelerate, Sharon Fenolio, our vice chancellor. We have then our speakers, and you already were introduced to our speakers, Warner Baxter, Orv Kimbrough, Sandra Van Treese, Marcela Manjarez, and then posthumously George Paz. But the combination of everybody putting their ideas has blossomed into this speaker series. And we want this series to inspire you, okay? We just don't want you listening. We want this to inspire you, letting you hear real-life stories of UMSL graduates, okay? These aren't people being flown in from New York. These are UMSL graduates on how important ethics are in the successful road to life. And all of this while providing you with a great chance to interact and network with these people. Now, from a personal perspective, I am so honored to be here with you, because if you take away my gray hair, my scars and wrinkles, and Max is sitting there going, man, you do have a lot of gray hair. But if you take that all away, I am one of you. 1982 BSBA, 1985 MBA. I believe in this institution, and I believe it sincerely. I've had 3 family members educated here. Furthermore, each of the future speakers, all seated in the front row, all highly successful, much more successful than me. They're all just like you. These UMSL grads all started at the bottom of the ladder, all encountering hardships and adversities. None of them, not one, predicted the success of their career. They all navigated the ever-changing road to life, and ethics were key. 6 years ago, I was asked to give the spring commencement address here at UMSL. I had a top 10 list of guiding principles to help me navigate this road. Many of these principles were given to me by people a whole lot smarter than me. And these principles are so important because life is very complicated. Family, children, career, school, money, sports, parents, in-laws, outlaws. I mean, it's a complicated, life is complicated. I didn't realize it back then, But half of my top 10 list, half of them were centered on ethics. So let me give you my top 10 list. And more importantly, there is a business card that UMSL has given out to everybody that has the top 10 list on it. Let me go through them quickly, then we're going to go through some simple, neat examples. So number 1 and number 2, these came from 2 UMSL professors here. Professor Gans, right in the front row, okay? And Professor Devereaux. When focusing on a complex problem or project, first, break it into smaller tasks that are easier to understand. And second, believe in your process. For Professor Gantz, debits do need to match credits, okay? For the engineers out there, the old right angle, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Believe in the process. Principle number 3, in my last undergraduate class, business policy, Professor Winter. If you are ever given a chance to speak publicly, ever, take it. If you have to stay up all night, work your fingers to the bone, it doesn't matter. Take it and knock it out of the park. Principle 4, one of my best friends, one of the largest construction companies in the Midwest, also a cancer survivor. At the depths of his health issues, he quoted me a phrase that his father had given to him. The phrase is simple. Tough times do stop. Tough people don't stop. Principle 5. The more successful you become, the more conflicts of interest you will have. The key is to always disclose. This came from Elliot Stein. As you become successful, people want you to help them. But you're going to naturally get involved with conflicts. And the key is don't try to eliminate conflicts in your life. Disclose them to people. Tell them, I'd like to help you, but my friend over here wants me to help them. What would you like me to do? Let them come up with an answer. 6, excellence attracts attention. I have more people come to me and say, Joe, how do I get noticed? Excellence attracts attention. Perseverance, work habits, attitude, character, ethics. Okay? You will get noticed. You absolutely will get noticed. And I'll give you some reasons later. 7, very important. This came from Elliot. Admit your mistakes long before someone else finds them. Honest self-evaluation is key. If you make a mistake, tell your boss and then tell them how you will fix the situation. 8, conduct yourself with the belief that all your emails, text, phone calls, and meetings could end up on the front page. 9, this was again given to me by Elliot, but it's my favorite, absolute favorite. And not that we're supposed to be in the judging business, but this is something to live by. Judge a person's character by how they treat someone that they would never socialize with. I've got to tell you this Stein story. So got to tell you about Elliot. So I'm blessed that several of the Cardinals owners are clients and friends, and I was able to purchase green seats 20 some odd years ago, the first year they were offered. Mary and I, my wife and I, we take Elliot to the Cardinal game, sit in our seats right behind home plate. Great game, Cardinals win in the bottom of the 9th. We then drive Elliot home to his condo in Clayton. The doorman opens Elliot's car door. I believe the doorman's name was Tommy. Elliot immediately says, "Tommy, how'd the Cardinals do?" The doorman, so enthusiastically, I'm trying to imitate him, he says, "Mr. Stein, I was listening to the radio. Shannon was going nuts. Cardinals won in the bottom of the ninth. It was awesome." So this is the doorman telling Elliot. Elliot then says to him, "Come on, give me some more of the details." The doorman then went into, it was great, a 1-minute explanation, with the end being that Elliot thanked him for the play-by-play, patted him on the back, and then Elliot shuffles off. Mary and I start to drive away, and Mary cocks her head. She looks at me and she says, "Did I miss something here?" She says, "We were all at the game." And I told her, I said, "Nope, honey, you didn't miss a thing. That is Elliot being Elliot. That's how he was." And finally, number 10. The 3 words I'll use are humble, kind, and class. And I want to spend a minute to talk about the people that this fabulous theater named after, Mary Ann and Des Lee. A lot of you people don't know them. Look them up. Just look them up. They were a wonderful couple in every way that you can describe a couple. I had seen both of them for many years, but I really only knew Des. He was a man of class, not style, class. And there is a huge difference. He was also a random collection of random acts of kindness. That's what he was. I would see Des on the practice range out of Belle Reve Country Club. He was a range rat. I don't know if you know what a range rat is, but that's somebody who likes to practice. Not play, but practice. He was a range rat. And I would watch Des walk up to young people hitting balls. And Des was 80 at this time. I'd watch him walk up to a young person hitting balls. Okay, young man, young lady. He'd say, "Young lady, nice swing. How are you?" "I'm Des." And that's it. "I'm Des." He wouldn't say, "I'm Mr. Lee. I'm Des Lee." He'd just say, "I'm Des." And then I would watch him and this 15-year-old start talking about shop, golf swings, ball contact, life. Humble and kind with class. Des made this world a better place. So those are the top 10. Now, you know, Max in the front row, Max is over there saying, "Okay, do you actually use these principles in business?" It's like, come on, Joe, you run your own private investment fund. Don't you do that Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, crazy trading stuff? I use these principles every day. Simple examples, principles 1 and 2. I get new complex problems every morning at 5 a.m. 5 a.m., I got to tell you, in fact, sometimes up at midnight watching the overseas markets, okay? I get these complex problems. First thing I do, I write them down in my notebook. And you're going to think, well, you can't have much of a notebook. What this is, it's a spiral-bound notebook that goes inside my outside leather portfolio. I've got 40 years of notebooks. Every morning, I write down my projects and how I'm going to solve them. So the 2 things. You know, I break it down into tasks, and I believe in my process. And let me give you another example. I've got 2 of my sons here. My one son, Michael, graduated from the UMSL WashU engineering program. And he's an engineer, mechanical engineer at Hunter Engineering. And Michael and I were just talking about this the other day. He sometimes gets these big problems on machines that go bad. And I love to watch him say, well, you know, Dad, there's a problem, and we can't get a part from China for 2 months, so I'm going to dissect it and get the piece, and I could get it machined here in St. Louis in a week. And I'm like, that's how you get noticed. You figure things out. So the real world examples of how these principles work. Principle number 3, public speaking. Well, I'm here today. But let me give you a little story. Several years ago, I was asked to be an expert witness in front of our United States Congress, the House Financial Services Committee, and I remember talking to Professor Gans about this. It was on accounting issues related to the banking industry. Now, you're going to probably say, God, that's boring. It really, it sort of is boring, but it's so neat to get invited to speak in front of Congress. And talk about nervous. Having to give a 5-minute uninterrupted speech with half the people having 3 initials on their business card, you're like, oh my God, you don't want to make a mistake in front of these people. But I took the chance, and it was wonderful. I got so much feedback from both Democrats and Republicans, and it gave me hope. It really does. It gives me hope that we really do live in a great country, and there's more people in the middle who just want to get along. And it made me feel great. But if you ever have that chance, you got to do it. Principle number 4, tough times. This stock market is tough. We had the worst first half of this year in over 50 years. And in fact, I tell people, this stock market could give a woodpecker a headache. That's how frustrating it is. And I preach all the time, you have to grind. You have to grind hard. It's boring, it's a process, but you grind. My other son, who also went to UMSL here, Joe, he works with me. And it's awesome now that I've got one of the young people at my company, my son Joe, who reminds me of this. And it's like, Dad, we'll get down, we'll have some frustrating days. And he's like, Dad, we're going to be fine. You've taught us great principles. We'll be fine. And I'm telling you, it will be. These hard times, but you'll get through them. You just got to grind. Principle number 5, conflicts of interest. I can't explain it much better than that, but the more successful you become, the more you will have. Just tell people. Disclose. 6, excellence attracts attention. What else can I say? Aim high, shoot for the stars, and if you just land in the clouds, you'll be fine. Just do the right thing. 7, admit your mistake. For me, working in this stock market, I've got them every day. You just have to admit when you make a mistake and try to stick with your principles that do well for you. 8, conduct, public and private. I always try. I said try to be my best, not saying I am. My kids even say to me, they say, Dad, you are always on point. Okay, you're always on point. There's a lot of pressure on you. Let your hair down. Just relax. And my response to them is, pressure is a privilege. If you happen to be the really great athlete on the team, or if you happen to be a key member at work, or happen to be a key family member, and everybody's counting on you, don't let that pressure weigh you down. Find strength in that pressure, because it's a privilege to have that pressure. And then finally, principles 9 and 10 that I talked about, those were examples of Elliot and Desley. 2 men of grace, kindness, class, and ethics, all wrapped up into one package. So I hope one or several, or maybe all of these top 10 will cause you to take a pause and think about this. The reason being is that there's a phrase out there that I hate. And the phrase is, you are who you are. I hate that. What a lie. My Italian grandmother came over on a boat. could barely speak any English. She had a saying, crudely translated was, steal with your eyes. And what she really meant was you learn with your eyes and your ears open. Find people that have characteristics, principles, ethics that you admire and incorporate them into your life. Become the person you want to become. You can change anytime you want. 40 years ago, I graduated from UMSL. Nobody knew what this institution was. Nobody. It was UMSL. It's that little place in North County. Nobody knew it. Today, because of the tremendous achievements of the future speakers in this front row, of UMSL graduates, our faculty and staff, this institution has a real reputation. You are working to graduate from the University of Missouri, St. Louis. You can do great things and let ethics be your guide. Thank you and God bless. Okay?
So we've got new technology. So try this out today. A couple things. We email you to death. And so you use UMSL Triton today. This is going to be a great app to communicate better. And there's going to be a survey, because this is a trial. This is a pilot. And we always want to get better. So please make sure you answer that survey so we learn from it. So we're going to use these as mics. So Michael Butler's going to help me. And this is the opportunity to ask a question. And so I'm going to start. I see one young man with a bunch of faculty here. So I'm going to pick on him first. This is for Joe.
How you doing, Joe? I'm Anthony Taylor. I am the president of Black Business Student Associated. So anybody have any questions, link up with me after this. My question for you, what is some advice you wish you were told while you were starting out?
Okay, so the question is, what have I been told when I was getting started?
Yeah,
okay?
like when you first.
Oh, there are so many lessons that I've been given, but several of that I think are maybe the most important. Number one is that keep your processes, if you're delivering a product or a service, number one, keep it simple. Number two, always deliver on what you tell people you're going to do. And if you can do what you tell people you're going to do, you will beat 95% of the competition out there. So if you tell somebody you're going to show up at 7 a.m., I'm making this up, you're showing up tomorrow at 7 a.m. to work on a project, you're there at 6:55, on time, all the time, and if you tell them you're going to do something, you get it done. And here is what people typically don't do. If something goes astray and you're not going to complete it, tell the client immediately. Let them know the truth. And if you do that, the client will be accepting. The same that I'm looking at Warner and Orv and Marcel and Sandra, just like when you had employees, if they would come to you and say, I had something, it went astray, I'm going to try to fix it. Good, tell me, because things do go wrong. So number one, keep your products and processes simple. Number two, whatever you tell people you're going to do, you have to do it.
My name is Michael Sherblum. I'm president of the Entrepreneur Club. If anyone is interested, find me afterwards. If I am faced with an ethical dilemma that does not have a clear right or wrong answer, what are some steps I can take to gain some clarity?
Well, if you're in an ethical dilemma, typically there's two sides. Why not get the parties involved? For example, I had I'm not in real estate at all, okay? That's not my business. But I had somebody who owned a house, and I had somebody who wanted to sell it, and I had somebody who wanted to buy it. And they're both friends. And they're trying to haggle on price, and I go, I grab them both. I go, listen, I'm your friend. I like you a lot, and you want to sell your home. You're my other friend. I like you a lot. You want to buy my home. If you guys want me involved, I'll be involved. Otherwise, I'm going to shut up. And but God, both of them looked at me. They're like, well, we would rather have you involved a little bit. I go, okay, that's fine. But if you don't like what I say, that's tough luck. You've now asked me. So I don't know your exact situation, but it gets back to one of my principles is that the more successful you become, you're going to have conflicts. And don't try to eliminate conflicts, because if you want to eliminate conflicts, you're going to live in a little box and watch TV all day. You can't do that. Tell people about your conflicts. And sometimes these people will help you with the answers.
Thank you.
Okay?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Devin Womack. And first, I'd like to thank you for showing up and everyone else as well, but also anyone else who had a part in setting up and orchestrating this event today. I love the top 10 principles that you have. One of the guiding forces that I have from one of my pastors was you don't have to be picture perfect, but always be an image of progress.
Ooh, I like that. Can I add that? Maybe I'm going to go to 11. I love it.
So my question for you is, you being established in your career, being successful, despite no one being perfect, what are some areas of opportunity that you still have professionally and personally?
Are you asking me what I was back then, or are you asking, that's why I'm confused at, or do you want me to talk about new stuff now?
The floor is yours.
Okay, back then. So back then, listen, back then, 40 some odd years ago, I came from a little school called UMSL, okay, which was nothing, okay? And the investment banking, money management business is very much a silk stocking business. So I didn't have the quote unquote pedigree to be, hanging with these people. I've got a phrase, and I'm sure most people have heard this first phrase: blood is thicker than money. No, blood is thicker than water, but blood is thicker than water. But then I always say, money's thicker than both of them. If you can make money for people, everybody's going to like you and want you. And for some reason, I don't know why, God-given, I had some ability. And I don't know why, but some things, especially numbers just work in my head. And I think it's one of the things that Elliot Stein loved about me. Things just worked for me when it came to figuring out investments and numbers. And as I said, blood is thicker than water, but in this business, money's thicker than the both of them. If you can find ways to make money for people ethically, boy, people will open their doors to listen to your advice. And the other thing is, again, things that I had learned, and some of it came from my parents. But again, it was, you have to deliver on what you say. So if you tell somebody something, you just got to do it. Don't ever oversell. Never, ever, ever, ever. Tell them the truth and over-deliver all the time.
That one over here.
Yes.
Good morning. My name
Good morning.
is Molly Ingram. I'm in the Graduate School of Business. I have a question for you. What is one thing you would tell your younger me?
Okay, help me out there, Dan, because my hearing is really bad.
What advice for a younger her?
A younger her?
Yeah.
Younger me, like for yourself.
Or a younger you?
Oh, a younger you?
What would you say to yourself 10 years ago?
You're grounded again? As I always say, my father, First generation born off the boat Italian, and he absolutely believed that the reason that God gave you a rear end was to get spanked. And so I unfortunately did feel that a few times. But no, if I go through the things that I try to preach about, don't think that your goal is to be rich. Find something you love to do. And once you become really good at it, or great at it, excellence attracts attention. For example, I'm going to use something different. Has anyone ever met Michaela Schifrin, who is the world's best female skier? Okay, I had a chance, okay, when she was a little kid, and she had no idea how good she was going to be, but she pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed to be great. And now after she achieved this greatness, everything else has come with it. She didn't envision that. And so my point is, I don't know what you like, but you might say, I like chemistry, I like math. Find what you like, really, really try to be excellent at it. And I guarantee people like Warner or Sandra or Marcella, if you get inside one of their companies, they're going to notice that excellence and they're going to help pull you along. The other thing, and it's so important, because in today's world of social media and the press, we as executives, we want to surround ourselves with people who are not only competent, but are ethical. Because we don't want bad to happen. And let me tell you, there's so much bad out there that could happen. You want to surround yourself with people who have great skills and great ethics. Because none of us want to end up on the front page, because the front page is typically only reserved for the bad stuff. So I would tell you, find what you love, try to excel at it. You're going to get a chance to get inside of an organization, and you'll get noticed.
Awesome. Yeah. Hi,
Yes,
my
sir.
name is Aryan Farhadi. I'm the accounting club president. And my question today is, what are the biggest advantages of getting an MBA?
Ooh, what are the biggest, of which I do have an MBA. I got my MBA at night while working full time. So most employers will look to your schooling as another building block that you can persevere through a process. Okay? I cannot tell you what percentage of my MBA I use on a daily basis. It's probably relatively low. Probably. And I would, Warner or Sandra, Marcella, I would, anybody, I mean, but it's a process that employers want to see that you are driven enough to get through it. And there are some great tools to learn in it. So I would say you have to look at it as an investment. And that's how I did, you know, I said, I knew in my business I wanted to succeed, and I thought an MBA would just be another tool to help me get there. So can I tell you that getting the MBA guarantees? No, but it's going to help. And one from UMSL really helps.
Thank you.
Hi, I just want to say thank you for giving us the talk today. It was really inspiring. So my question to you is, how does one become a leader without being very authoritative?
Okay, you just want to become a leader. Say that again.
Being a leader without being too authoritative.
Okay.
Wait, so help again. How does a leader become a leader without being authoritative?
Like too authoritative, like bossy, or like
How does a leader become a leader without being too bossy?
You know, can I give you an example back?
Yeah.
I'm going to try to give you some examples back, because a lot of times people believe that leaders many times have stepped over and on people to get to those positions. and sometimes they're rough and, you know, and I'm going to give a real life example. I was on the BJC Foundation board, and I was able to watch Sandra Van Treese and her excellence at BJC. And for those who, and I would especially, you know, the old phrase, birds of a feather, you know, women can look at other women and find inspiration. Your question is perfect for someone like Sandra, because I've never heard Sandra raise her voice except for about 2 weeks ago when she was giving her husband trouble about his golf swing. I heard that and it was hilarious. But I watched Sandra excel at BJC, and she was always so polite and so quiet, and she was never rough, never, okay? So don't think that has to be part of leadership. The other thing I will tell you is that Elliot Stein, my mentor, he never, ever, ever, said that 3 times, said a bad word about a person. Never, okay? He didn't have to say a bad word, because if someone, I was in a board meeting one time, somebody asked Elliot what he thought about this potential CEO, and Elliot's response was, don't really know him, might not be my first choice. That was it. Everybody else in the room took it as that Elliot seems to think he's okay. Elliot doesn't know him well. Maybe not his first choice. It's probably okay. And I looked at everybody in the room. I said, are you kidding? Elliot had left. I said, that's the most horrible thing I've ever heard Elliot say in my life. I said, you absolutely cannot do this. So there are great ways to succeed. There are great ways to be a leader, but being vocal doesn't have to be one of them. Sandra was great at that. She was a leader, but she was not screaming and yelling at people. Okay? She'd be a great person for you to network with after we get outside of here.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right, let's try something up here. Question? All right, let's see if this works.
Oh, good hands.
Thank you again for coming and speaking
You're welcome.
today. A question I have is, being an entrepreneur, or one that's thinking about being an entrepreneur, what are some of the risks that you've taken, or how have you evaluated the risks that you've encountered?
So Dan is the serial entrepreneur. I was just an entrepreneur starting 17 years ago when I started my own company. So number one, you should talk to him. But I'll give you my thoughts. And it's a little bit, when I looked at it, the same thing I said earlier, if you got a product or service that you can do, and you know you can do it well, and if you can deliver on it the way you promise people, I'm telling you, chances are you're going to be good. And chances you will survive and succeed, and one of the reasons is just tell yourself, I'm going to succeed. I'm not going to quit. I won't quit. I won't quit. You just got to keep pushing. And most people that I know, our other cohort, George Paz, who passed away, George, huge success. But along the way, George had a few clunkers. But that's okay. He was tough. He's like, no, I ain't giving up. I'm coming back. And he did phenomenally well. So I would say if you've got product, services, and a way to deliver it on time, just be hard-headed. You'll win. You'll win.
Hi, Mr. Stieven. My name is Wendy. I'm
Hi.
with UMSL and Marcom. My question is, what did you learn about ethics from UMSL?
I would say a couple things. I had a couple just wonderful professors. I mean, a ton of them, okay? And they didn't preach ethics. They they very firmly preached process. But intertwined in the process, you didn't even know they were preaching ethics. Professor Gans, great example, okay? Because you would go to him for questions and how he would treat students. You know, you can find bad people anywhere. You can find bad people anywhere. And the press will love to take the bad people and highlight them. Unfortunately, we don't get enough of the great ones highlighted. But you would watch how Professor Gans would treat people who came for questions. And if you came with a question, and if it was an honest question, he would give you all the time in the world. I mean, he would, all the time in the world. And he made you feel important, whole. And so he was teaching accounting, so he's not teaching you ethics. But the way he treated you was teaching you exactly about ethics. So I think those are what I would consider the best examples. I would love to see more people actually say the E word and talk about ethics. I think ethics could almost be a dirty word, and I get upset with that because I really think that most people want to live a life where when you do things that are good, people want to be at community with you. We as human beings love other people by us. I mean, that's how we're created. And typically you want to be around these people who are warm, helpful. They're classy people. And this is the difference between class and style. People with class, they don't have their hair, and don't have the diamonds this big. They want to invite you into their area of success. They want you. And that, again, is about ethics. It might not be exactly about saying ethical and ethics and all, but they're teaching you and they're showing you. And I think I learned from Professor Gans, Professor Devereaux, a ton of my other professors, same things. And how they treated you. And I try to do that with my employees. If I have an employee who makes a mistake, that's one thing. If I have an employee who makes a mistake and comes to me, and I could tell that they're disturbed that they made that mistake and they want to do right, I'm more interested in helping them. I'm going to work with them. I'm going to try to find a way. Nope.
So this is Wendy, so she's going to be writing an UMSL Daily article on you, so I hope you got that done. Time for 2 more questions, and then we'll move on. One more, and then our last one.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm the president of the Supply Chain and Transportation Club, so if anyone wants
Get a little closer.
I'm the president of the Supply Chain and Transportation Club, so if anyone wants to go up to me after. My question is, if there is any unethical behavior discovered within the company or the supply chain, what actions do you guys take?
In my company specifically, sir?
Or as CEO or chairman of a
company. And I would say this. I think you've got to lead by example right off the bat and let people understand that unethical behavior of any kind is never, ever tolerated. I actually got in trouble. I won't say how, but I once told my employees if they ever cheated on their spouse, I'd fire them. Because if you're going to cheat on your spouse, what are you going to do to my clients who are millionaires and billionaires? I got told later on by personnel that I can't really say that. And my response back to personnel is, tough luck, I meant it. Okay? You've got to set examples, but you better live up to them. I've been married to my wife for 40 years, and people who know my wife know why I'm the luckiest guy, one of the luckiest guys out there. But you've got to set a great example for your employees and demand it and let them understand if you find out that they're not doing things that the right way. For example, my employees all know it is not uncommon in my business that, you go out on these trips and some stupid things, people end up going places. I'm like, all my employees, if they ever want to go to one of those places, they're fired. It ain't happening on my watch, period. Not acceptable. And set an example for these people. And you know what happens, so you'll end up attracting people who believe in the same principles that you believe in. And then it makes it easier.
One of the things Joe said when we were in this committee was, if you have strong ethics, actually, you have easier choices. So you don't have to remember lies, you don't have to... We have one last question up in the peanut gallery. Here we go.
The peanut gallery.
All right. So first of all, thank you so much for your time and such golden remarks. I'm one of the students at one of the entrepreneurship undergrad class. My name is Bilal Ahmed, and I'm also a student ambassador of United Nations International, and through them I've been in many nonprofit startups. So being an entrepreneur, we overlook many challenges. So what do you think is or are the most important challenges that we should never ever overlook? Thank you.
For a startup.
That's a great question. So, I'm going to give you something that my son Joe, I don't know if my son Joe is here. He was, there's my son Joe. And Joe sits 8 feet behind me. So literally, this is my son who's 8 feet behind me. He could be hitting me in the back of the head any day I want. But one of the things that we do is when we have a great month, we never call a client. We only call when we have a down month. We only call with bad news. And this is something else Elliot's told me. He says, the amateurs call with good news. The professionals call with bad news. And Joe watches me humbly call clients if and when we have a bad month. And I call them all. And it's a humbling experience. And he also hears me say, you've got to be humble in this business. You have to be, and humble in every business. So that's one of the things I would tell you, is that when things go astray, boy, you've got to be the first one to go after it. Tell them the truth.
Awesome. How about a round of applause for Joe? You want to stand up or you want to go sit down?
Whatever you want to do. I'm happy.
Okay. A couple things as I listen. One is there's a lot of what we hope you get out of this is you can do it too. All of us are alums. We started right here. You can do it too. So next we're going to meet the 4 other distinguished alums that what we're going to do is have them share their UMSL story, why we'd want to visit with them a bit, and then we're going to convene. There's lunch outside, and then there's going to be places for you to network. There's 2 ways to approach it. One is to grab lunch and leave. What good is that? Or linger and network and practice. And the hope again is you make a memory, you make a relationship that helps begin transforming your life. So first up, Warner Baxter.
Whoa. I didn't get a chance to see everyone here. There are quite a few. So number one, I want to start with appreciation, right? First, Joe and Mary. I mean, can you give Joe a round of applause? Was he not just terrific? Really. Thank you. Secondly, appreciation for all of you. I know some of you are sitting there thinking about what you've got to still do today, and you're studying, and you got exams, but you chose to be here. So thank you. I appreciate that. That shows commitment, because number one, and I'll share a quick perspective in a little bit, being here, it says that, you are taking your career, your personal life into your own hands, right? You are stepping out and deciding to do something about it. So thank you. So thank you. I will tell you that, look, I am so honored and humbled to be here. I'm a 1983 graduate of the University of Missouri, St. Louis, and in accounting. So Dave Gans was one of my instructors, and I was very blessed to have him as one of my instructors. And as George Paz said, I will say too, one of the best decisions I ever made in my life was going to University of Missouri, St. Louis. So I'm a St. Louisan, lifelong. So if you're a St. Louisan, what's the first question you ask? There you go. So I went to high school very close to here, Rittner High School, which is really 10 minutes away. And I didn't know what I wanted to be. And I didn't know I would ever have the great honor and privilege to do what I have been able to do in my career. And that is to be part of the energy industry, Ameren, but never would have I envisioned to have the privilege and honor to lead that organization as chair and CEO and now as executive chair. And along the way, learned so much about life. You learn about business, but you learn in business, and when you interact with so many people and the experiences that you have, you learn a lot about life. You learn a lot about yourself. And so that's why I'm so grateful. And so a couple of things, I'm not going to try and match everything that Joe did. It's impossible. I thought his insights were terrific. So let me give you a couple of perspectives for you to take away, and then I look forward to meeting with you all. And I'm not going to give you anything that's all that heavy because, frankly, the 2 or 3 things I'm going to tell you that have mattered to me, you're doing already. And the first thing that's helped me along the way, and I learned this here at the University of Missouri St. Louis because of people like Dave Gans, because Jim Kruger, Jack Cox, I could name names that some of you may recognize, but let me just say this. The first thing is never underestimate the importance of preparation. Never underestimate the importance of preparation, advanced preparation. And that really isn't just about school, it isn't about career, it's really all phases of life. I will tell you throughout my career, I'm not the brightest bulb, right? I haven't been the brightest bulb. Like Joe, I'm smart enough to get brighter bulbs surrounding me. But I will tell you one of the things that I learned very early was that it always helped me to be one of the most prepared going into the room. I didn't know all the answers. I guarantee you I don't know all these. I work with brilliant people, far smarter than me. But I'm prepared. And you know why? I'm a big believer in this, that success, right, comes when advanced preparation crosses opportunity. Because when you prepare, you can see the opportunity, you can make those connections, and you can pounce on that opportunity as opposed to having to go by you because you didn't take that extra effort, that extra time to prepare. And frankly, this is what you're doing today, all of you, right? You're going to walk away from here, I hope, with a couple of important nuggets that you can take with you. And I will tell you, preparation was one of them. The second thing I will tell you that's been helpful to me is always remain curious. Always remain curious. Always have this mindset of continuous learning. And you're sitting there saying, oh my God, I'm in the middle of studying. Don't tell me I need to learn more, right? No, that's not the point. Some of it may be reading, but I will tell you continuous learning actually is what Dan said a little bit earlier. It is finding time to pick the brains of others, your friends, your colleagues. Find a mentor, right? I will tell you, we've mentioned George Paz several times. He was a colleague, he was a dear friend, he was my mentor. When I first started, when I became CEO, he was one of the first persons I sought out because I knew I didn't know it all. But I knew that I could pick his brain and I could come away with things that would help me not just be a better CEO, not just be a better leader, but actually it helped me in life. And it actually is a humbling experience when you sit there and just listen to others provide perspectives because you recognize what you really don't know and you can take that away and you can share that with others. Last thing, and then I'll get off the stage because I'll have my time some other point, is as Joe said, and I can't emphasize it enough, it's important in business, in life, that you're principled. That you're principled. Because, this is what people will always remember. If you're not principled, if you do not have that ethics, you do not have that part of your character, that is what people will, they will forget all the great things you did if you do not have ethics. And to me, that starts with integrity, doing the right thing. It includes respect, valuing others. It includes having accountability. Joe had that on his thing. I'm a note taker, by the way. I took notes, right? A little bit earlier, talk about Fran's preparation. But he said, admit your mistakes. Own them. Own your actions, but also own your inactions. Because when you don't take action when you should have, that says that's an action too. And last but not least, I would just say, stewardship. You're all so young, you're sitting there saying, what do you mean stewardship? Stewardship to me, when you continue to move on, you'll look back, and I would have never really thought about that when I was sitting in your chair some 40 years ago. Wow. But stewardship says, leave it better. So whatever you do, leave it better. Then whatever that it is, it could be in your personal life, it could be in your career, it could be anywhere. But see, those are underlying values. I call those things the shadow of a leader. Everyone in here will cast a shadow. Joe talked about Elliot Stein, and he met, that doorman, right? And he cast that shadow. Think about this story. Joe remembers that to this very day, 40 years ago. It's because people pay attention. The shadow that you cast is much longer and much wider than you ever know. I look forward to meeting with all of you coming up. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker, Orv, please come up. Welcome.
It's good to be here with you all. I'm going to speak for just 60 seconds. The first time I stepped foot on this campus was back in 1994. When I stepped foot on this campus, I was the least likely to succeed. I came to the campus after having spent a decade or more in the foster care system, and I was here to take a summer course to see if I would qualify to go to college. I scored a 15 on the ACT, which was terrible. My life outcomes at that point were not pretty positive. But I persevered. UMSL's been great to me through the years. I came back and I studied for an MBA here. I got an MSW at the University of Missouri, St. Louis. I studied theology at Aquinas Institute of Theology, and my entire career has been about servant leadership. I have gone fast through my career. There's a country song, and I love all genres of music, but there's a country song. It is Live Like You Are Dying, not live like you are sick. I think for my life, I have lived these 47 years as though I've been dying. I encourage you each to be persistent. I encourage you each to embrace a resilient spirit. You will have things that will come at you, but you too can overcome and achieve everything in life that you desire to achieve. And I think that ethics and principles is the foundation of all relationship. Social work is about understanding people within the context of their environment, not passing judgment, because every one of us has a specific story. Business, all magic happens in business on the other side of the relationship. And theology is cruciform, it's relationship with God, and then it's relationship with people. If you love God, you treat people well, because you are all embodiments of that. Thank you.
As you're going to notice, every one of these leaders have a strong lexicon, a strong language. You're going to adopt some of that and develop your own lexicon and your own values. Marcella from Centene.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and I echo Warner's comment. You are here. You showed up. And I think in life, showing up is probably 80% of the journey. So to make the decision to be here and listen to us and hopefully stay for lunch and network with us. That's part of the journey. I graduated from St. Louis in 1998. I am an immigrant. I came from Mexico City. And one of the first things I did when I arrived in St. Louis was to enroll in St. Louis. I wasn't sure I could get in. I had studied English in Mexico, but English was definitely not my first language. I was lucky to be admitted, and my journey here started. And from the very beginning, everybody in the faculty and staff at UMSL helped me. They reached out. Professors wanted to know what were my dreams. The chair of, I graduated with a degree in economics and a minor in statistics. The chair of the econ department at UMSL wanted to know where I wanted to work, what I wanted to do. And so anyway, fast forward a few years later, I was ready to graduate. And it was truly a team effort. All my professors had been actively engaged, given me advice. I had many jobs because I had to pay for my schooling. And I was lucky to get a scholarship through UMSL as well. So I tutored in Spanish and mathematics. And then I also worked at the Economic Research Center at UMSL. And I was a TA, so it took a lot of effort to get me through. But anyway, before I graduated, I actually received an offer from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. So my passion was economics and in particular monetary policy. So I was lucky to actually start in March and graduated in May. And my journey started there. I am an economist at heart. I worked at the Federal Reserve for about 8 years. My kids were born. I had twins. I thought I was going to be a stay-at-home mom, but that didn't quite work out. So I went back to work at the Fed. And then after a while, I decided I wanted to go back to graduate school because I wanted to be a professor. Fast forward that, I ended up with a master's in economics and went back to the Federal Reserve where I took a different role from a researcher. I ended up in communications during the financial crisis. I was telling Orv this joke. I think I ended up in communications because I was the only economist who could make eye contact. So they thought, you are good at this. We will put you in charge of communications. Anyway, my journey from the Fed went to Centene. I wasn't really looking for a job. I had just been promoted at the Federal Reserve as vice president. But somebody, a headhunter, came knocking on my door, and apparently Centene, which was a company I had never heard of, was looking for a person to lead communications. It was a chief communications officer role. So I went, I interviewed, and after a series of long interviews and extensive psychological testing, it was like 9 hours of psychological testing, I guess I passed. And I took the role, and some of you, well, again, I had never heard of Centene, but little did I know that when I took the job 3 months later, Centene was going to be on everybody's radar because we made a multi-billion-dollar acquisition that was going to double the size of the company. So obviously, I had experience with financial markets. I thrived during the financial crisis, but nothing had prepared me for what I was about to withstand and succeed. Anyway, I think my goal there, and this is common for females in particular, the imposter syndrome, right? I didn't deserve the job, I wasn't good enough, and so I was certain that at any moment I was going to be found out. But one thing was clear to me, I'm a long distance runner. And so I knew that I was going to try my best. I love Warner's comment on preparation, or success is where preparation meets opportunity. I'm very hardworking, I'm resilient, and I persevere. My middle sister, who is a mechanical engineer and computer science, likes to remind me that I'm not smart, I'm just hardworking. But I knew that was my chance, right? And I knew I would tell my family, I don't know how long I can do this job, but I know one thing. They're going to have to rip it out of my hands because I'm going to try my best every single day, and that's what I did, and it was an amazing journey. I led communications for Centene for 7 years, and I learned so much. And as I reminisce, it's hard to believe that I graduated in '98. Time has passed. But I think one thing is key, and as we talk about ethics, I would say ethics is not important. Ethics is everything. It's all about ethics. Thank you. It's all about ethics, because you can be super smart, you can rise to be whatever, C-level executive, anything. But if you cannot be trusted, and it only takes one time. So if you cannot be trusted, then you lose everything that you worked so hard for. And I love to quote my mother on many different things. It's a Mexican thing. We have a book on sayings. But my mother always used to say, and by the way, my mother did not have access to education. She had to drop out of school after grade school because she was one of the oldest in her household. And so she had to help take care of all her siblings after her mother passed away. But my mother had a beautiful way of conveying wisdom, and she was by far the smartest person I've ever met. So she used to say, never do good things that look like bad things, and never do bad things that look like good things. So always do the right thing. Don't do the easy thing. Do the right thing. And if people know that, number one, you work hard, you don't need to be the smartest person in the room. Actually, they say all these cliches, right? But if you're the smartest person in the room, you are in the wrong room. Seriously, you need to be where you're challenged, right? And learning, ever learning. But anyway, so just a little nugget. And then maybe one last point. One thing that I learned at UMSL and in my journey at the Federal Reserve, and as well at Centene, and then after Centene, is there are so many wonderful people out there, so many talented, gifted people and successful people who want to help. They want to help you. We're looking for people who have talent. We're looking for people who want to work hard. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay not to know things. That's the journey. The journey is to learn and make mistakes and rise above it. So always reach out for help. I think one key thing for me in my career is I always say it has taken a village to get me where I am. And it's mentors and sponsors, asking questions, reaching out, being prepared. If people see that you're interested, if people see that you are trying, they will want to help you. And this is what we're here for, right? This is why we're here, because we received help and support and guidance from so many others to ensure the success that we now enjoy. And so it's our turn as well, and we've done it through our journey. We're here to help you. We want to help. We want to see you succeed. So I look forward to meeting many of you later on, and thank you very much for having us.
Walk this way. Thank you. You want to come over here, Sandra? Or are you okay jumping up? Sandra, all right.
Wow. Well, yeah, I don't know about you guys, but that is an incredibly hard act to follow. First of all, if you were running a business, starting a business, what team would you like to have around you? That one, right? Those are the kind of people you all are, all right? And I just want to put that fine point on it, because we were all sitting in your chair a few years ago, but we were there. We were there. So, Sandra Van Treese, I am an alum of this fine institution back in 1982, business school, accounting emphasis. I too grew up in St. Louis, so what are you gonna ask me? Yeah, I was out one of those West County brats. I was really fortunate. I grew up in an area that had really good elementary and secondary education. My folks moved out there back when Manchester Road was dirt, literally. And they didn't know what they were getting into, but it turned out to be good. And I did well in high school, such that I was fortunate to earn a curator's scholarship to the University of Missouri, which was a good thing because absent that scholarship, I would not have had the financial resources to go to college, much less a university. So that was amazing, truly amazing. It was also amazing that this university accepted some high school credits I was able to earn. Some of you are familiar with AP. So I got that. That was great. I also had a brief stint at the St. Louis Community College, and UMSL took those credits too, thank goodness, right? That was amazing. And the other thing that was amazing was that I could get here on the St. Louis Metropolitan Bus System, because if I hadn't been able to get the bus, I wouldn't have been able to get here. So, you know, what I learned about that as part of my higher education is that I needed to depend on others to get me where I was going. And I've taken that philosophy sort of to heart throughout my education and throughout my career. Our successes are generally built on other shoulders, right? And as my mother would always say, your mistakes are the only thing that you can truly call your own. Or was that Billy Joel? I'm not sure. But anyway, she claimed it. And that was amazing. And I hope that you also take that, that as a bit of truth for yourself, right? We count on each other. You've heard it countless times from my colleagues here. We are all about relationships. It's about doing the right thing. It's about being there for each other. And that's what you learn. You remember the way people made you feel. You really don't remember necessarily what they said, but you remember how they made you feel. And if you can trust them, and if you believe in them, and they believe in you to get something done, you can have a difference of opinion. In fact, I hope that you all actively seek out people here at school or in your other circles who hold different beliefs than you do, and learn from them. I encountered all kinds of those types of folks here at UMSL, and I was able to have different conversations, different ideas, different thoughts. But they were all principled, right? They had reason for the convictions that they held. And that's part of higher education too. Learn how to have a constructive conversation with people who might not think exactly like you do, and then learn from that, right? We can be reasonable people. I think you are all reasonable people. And I think also that your experience here at UMSL can help you cultivate this. So I encourage you in parting, and we'll talk hopefully more afterwards, after lunch, but I encourage you to actively participate in seeking out differences of opinion, having constructive conversations in a temperate way, right? And a dialogue that you all can learn from. Because if we were all the same, and if we all thought the same, this would be a very boring place. So thank you for that. Talk to you later.
Probably easier to walk over this way. So I'm going to let Joe and Sandra and everyone, if they're going to go take their spots, I'm going to say a few more moments. But number one, Dave Gans, you're going to have to come out of retirement, apparently, because you've been quite a mentor for everyone. You guys got a lot of stuff today. A lot of language, a lot of input, and you don't have to take everything with you. As a matter of fact, you'll probably take 10% with you, but a lot of good 10%. So they've now exited. Please have lunch. Please linger. Please practice. Please network with yourselves. As these alums have told you over and over, we have something in common. We came here to campus, we went to class, and we went to work. And so cultivating these clubs and this togetherness is a very important thing for us, and we hope that you enjoyed it. So have a great afternoon and go network.